Okay, I'm on with Victor Koenik. Thank you, Vic, for giving me your time today. You were a British citizen who is British Israeli and moved to Israel. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, when October the 7th happened, um, I was very because I kind of knew more about it probably than a lot of people because I am Jewish and I was sort of a part of the community. So I knew about the levels of kind of depravity
Right.
which occurred. So, I can list things which are just known, like the kind of necrophilia was an element of October the 7th.
Right.
The mutilation of dead bodies, the stealing of dead bodies, the killing of parents in front of their children, the killing of children in front of the parents. And there's one incident where they cut off a woman's breast while she was alive and they were playing with it in front of her and filming themselves doing it. So this is all kind of like quite concrete and documented stuff. And then a close family member of mine who had a partner in the Socialist Workers' Party, who they'd been together for that point, I believe 17 years.
Right.
The Socialist Workers' Party threw a party to celebrate October the 7th.
So hang on. So the Socialist Workers' Party, which communist, shall we say, threw a party to celebrate the October 7th massacre.
Yes.
Did I just hear that correctly?
Yes, you did, yes. And this was in the town where I come from, which I don't know whether name or not. And because of that, the family member was Jewish. That was the kind of end of the relationship. And her last words to him were, "You should spend more time with your own people." And the community generally was very fearful. There's a lot of very old people in the community. They're very old.
Right.
And they were quite frightened, and they were like threats against the community immediately after October 7th. And I personally felt that I had to make a real and legitimate stand in as an individual to both make my views known and to show that I'm not afraid, that I'm not kind of intimidated, and also by doing that to let other people within the community know that they shouldn't be afraid and they shouldn't be intimidated. So I then made moves towards working for the Israeli army or the IDF.
So you went from the UK, sorry, just to interject, just for my viewers and that. So you went from the UK over to Israel because of October the 7th.
Yeah, and it took a while to do all the paperwork. So October the 7th, and I think I got here, and by the time I'd sorted out my insurance and everything else, it was January by the time I got here, and I went into to work for the Israeli army in the capacity of logistics. So I was basically helping with ration packs and uniforms on various military bases, which freed up other guys for more frontline activities.
Okay.
And we were living in, it was good fun. We were living in tents, and a lot of ex-CIA guys there, a lot of ex-US Marines,
okay,
a lot of ex-military people, and the interesting the ex-CIA guys. And there's some very senior. There's certainly one guy there who was he was this huge guy covered in tattoos of Hebrew writing, who was some senior figure within the civilian intelligence agencies in America, who was terrifying. He was just the most scary Jew I've ever met in my life.
Like the Jewish myth of a golem sort of thing.
Well,
like a big guy covered in Hebrew.
A big guy, but very clever. And to be frank, the rumor was that he was an assassin for the CIA and threw people out of helicopters in South America. A lot of people went out of, that was his job for the American civilian intelligence agency. So he was you couldn't see any of his tattoos when he was fully clothed, but every morning at 5 o'clock, he was out there doing like 500 press ups and 500 chin ups, 500 squats at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So he was a really, really scary guy. He'd been in every war since 1975. In every war, he'd served in every single, in Africa. So anyway, he's an interesting guy. So anyway, I did that for like 3 weeks. And then at the end of that, I went to work as a volunteer. It was incredible, really, because a lot of people said that without the volunteers going to Israel at that time, the country would have collapsed, because people were scared and people were leaving the country, and people were just frightened. And then all of a sudden there's this massive influx of international people from all over the world booking flights to Israel to help Israel. And the military they called up all the military, and they got a 150% response. So 100% of all the people they wanted turned up, and then 50% more people turned up to just kind of want from all over the world to help them. And so that was very flattering. I was very kind of appreciated. It was a nice feeling. I remember getting off the plane and so I said, "Thank you for your service," and saluted.
Yeah, I just got on a plane, but yeah, thank you.
So then from there I went to the Sinai Desert, where I worked as a volunteer on the farms, because what had happened was, because the Hamas had been murdering the Thais, the people from Thailand who worked on the farms, where I saw a bit of one where they tied a guy to a tree and they just took him apart fucking piece by piece. Absolutely disgusting. And they made an arrangement that no Thais could work there until the war was over or whatever. It was a direct arrangement between Hamas, I think the King of Thailand, something like, I don't know what the date, I could be wrong, but that was how it was. So they had no one to work on the farm. So all the volunteers came to work on the farms, harvesting fruit and vegetables and that. And they were from everywhere, France, America, a lot of Christians, a lot of people who just knew the score. Do you know what I mean? People who kind of knew how this was meant to play out. Because the idea that Hamas had was that on October the 7th, all of the Muslims in Israel and all of the surrounding Muslims would spring up on that day, and they would all attack Israel simultaneously, and that would be the end. And they'd just kill all the Jews, and that was the plan. That was how it was meant to work out. And they were meant to take an airbase I worked on, but on the way to the airbase, they ran into the Nova concert and just went crazy. Just a proper bloodlust kind of took over. And so yeah, that was. So anyway, what was I? Yeah. So anyway, I'm there. I'm working on the farms with the Christians, harvesting the fruit and the veg and that, keeping the place going. Got shot at by the Egyptians, which was interesting. So,
Shot at by the Egyptians. Why are the Egyptians shooting at you?
They didn't know me personally. I didn't take it in that kind of way.
Okay, why were they shooting at your group?
Pictures there, man. Yeah, do you know what I mean? There's a chance. But no, I was there, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I heard gunfire. And I knew it was really close, because if gunfire's close, you'll hear the bang and you'll hear a whiz of a bullet. You'll actually hear a bullet whiz by, like zzz. And I could hear that, and I thought, that's close. And I thought, that's heavy caliber. That's going to be a 50 caliber. And I thought the Israelis are going, that's a bit, I thought it was the Israelis doing target practice. I thought that's a bit close. And then I heard a load of screaming, like really loud screaming. And then it all stopped. And I went back to sleep. I was drunk. I was listening to indie music, like 90s indie music on Wi-Fi. And I go up in the morning and I see the guard, the guard of the camp, and he goes, "Did you hear him shooting at us last night?" And I goes, "I thought that was you." He goes, "No, it's the Egyptians." And I goes, "What was that all about then?" And he goes, "Well, basically, because I was right on the border with the fence, so I could walk to the fence. And the fence has got guard towers, and they stick these guys in the guard towers, and they go stir crazy in the guard towers. So they're just stuck up there with nothing to do with a 50 caliber machine gun, and they're just nothing to do. And every now and then one of them just goes nuts and starts shooting at people with a 50 caliber. And then the other Egyptians have to go in and sort him out. So what I heard was him shooting us with a 50 caliber. And the screaming was the other Egyptians either shooting him or dragging him out at a guard tower before there's like an international incident. And that was it. One of the other things, because Israel's full of Bedouin. There's a lot of Bedouin Arabs in Israel. And the Hamas killed the Bedouin. They shot a 9-month pregnant woman in the stomach, a Bedouin woman. So that set up a blood feud between Hamas and the Bedouin. And there's a lot of Bedouin in Israel, and the Bedouin traditionally serve in the Israeli military.
Right.
And the other aspect is you've got Hamas in Gaza, but then you've got the Palestinian Authority that kind of run Jericho and various other parts of Israel, which are predominantly Muslim areas run by the Palestinian Authority with a kind of oversight of the Israelis. Well, when Hamas took over Gaza, they killed all of these guys. They just killed them. So there's no love lost between those two groups either. So when Hamas kicked off in Gaza, and Hamas probably saying to them, you'll back us up, won't you? And they were like, yeah, we'll back you up. And then when it all kicked off, they were like, and just kind of like kept their heads down and kept out of the way. just to see how that would play out. And so that kind of takes us up to, then you had the, I want to go into the history of this, yeah?
Yeah, whatever works, mate. Yeah.
I just think like, otherwise it's like, so I'm going to go right, because a lot of people talk about this like it's just all sprung up.
I think the Middle East is, to quote Patrick Christie's, who I think is roughly my age or thereabouts, the Middle East has been in conflict since before I was born. I remember
Yeah,
my grandparents talking about it, to be fair,
yeah.
the conflict over there. It's always been something going on forever.
This is tea, by the way. Right,
We believe you.
I'm going to take you back to like 1900.
Right.
There's something I find interesting. There's a lot of history that I see about Israel is inaccurate. It's like it's not true. And so if we go back to like, let's say before 1900, there was an assassination attempt on the Tsar in Russia, and one of the assassins was a Jew. And then after that, you get the Protocols of Zion is written by the Russian intelligence service under the
I've
Tsar.
heard of that, yeah.
And then you get these massive pogroms of just killing Jews all over Europe. So this is 1900. So at that point, you get a big influx of Jews going from Eastern Europe into Israel, from Russia, Poland. This is the city I live in. Everyone's Russian. And a lot of people here came in like turn of the century 1900. Then you get World War One. Then you get the rise of Nazi Germany. Now, obviously, when Nazi Germany starts to rise, once again, you get a massive influx of Jews coming into Israel. You start to get this conflict between the let's say, the Arabs living here and the Jews coming in. At which point the Imam, I can't remember his name, or the Mufti, the Grand Mufti of Palestine, went to Germany to meet up with Adolf Hitler, and they formed an alliance. Now, the thing was, at the same time, Britain is fighting in the Middle East. So Britain is training an army in Arabs to fight for the empire. The Germans are training an army in Arabs to fight for the Nazis. So, and you've got this kind of background in Lawrence of Arabia, haven't you, and the Jordanians. So there's a long connection between the British Empire and the indigenous Arabs of these areas. Certainly the Jordanian royal family. Then you come in 1945, so the Holocaust is over. The Jews in Europe have nowhere to go, and they just come to Israel. There's Jews coming here from all over Israel.
Right.
In 1948, Israel declares itself as an independent state. The only country that recognizes Israel is Russia under Joseph Stalin. He recognizes Israel as an independent state. And the Czechoslovakians send paratroopers and weapons to Israel to help them fight against the Arabs. So in 1948, the war of which the Arabs call the Nakba, which Israelis call the War of Independence, which they believe they fought against Britain. Because you got to think, like during the Mandate, that the British, like the Irgun and the Stern gang, were fighting British soldiers. They were setting up bombs to kill British soldiers because Britain occupied Palestine up until the Declaration of Independence. So 1948, then Russia recognizes Israel as an independent state because that's part of the Cold War, and they're just thinking, well, we'll take Israel. They'll be our guys. And the war begins. Britain arms the Arab League and the Arab nations with loads of Lee-Enfield rifles and says, right, you can go to Israel. Whoever's saying you can go to Israel, you can kill all the Jews, you can take their gold, you can take their women, do anything you want. So every single surrounding Arab nation declares war on Israel simultaneously in 1948. This is where it gets interesting because what the Arabs do, and this is where you have to kind of get into an Arab mentality on it, the people they send to fight are the people they don't want. You know, they take the people from the bazaars and from the kind of people with no future, no opportunities, not too bright. They say, well, here's a Lee-Enfield rifle, here's a pair of boots, Israel's that way, off you go. So for them, it's a win-win. They're getting rid of the people they don't want, and if they take Israel, that's good too. Do you know what I mean? They can't go wrong. The net result is Israel fucking slaughters them. Absolutely slaughter. It's militarily one of the kind of weirdest. There's an interesting side note. There's this thing called where the Israelis said, this is in 1948, the Israelis said they had a nuclear weapon called a David, which was a mortar with a gas canister inside it. And they used to fire this gas canister, which used to make a loud noise and a bang. So they told the Arabs it was an atom bomb. The Arabs just ran away because they thought the Israelis were firing atom bombs at them in Jerusalem. And there's things. Well, I went on a patrol, this is a long time ago, with a 2.2 air rifle converted to via 2.2 rifle rounds on a bolt. And it was like a big honour. I had no ammunition. But all they had was 2.2 rounds. That was what they had, was 2.2 rounds of ammunition. And he was saying, yeah, it's a great honour to go on a patrol with this because this gun did all this stuff in 1948. And, well, that's good to know. So anyway, there was an area in the desert full of boots. As far as you can see, just boots. where when the Arabs went to run, they'd never worn boots before, and they couldn't run wearing boots. So they all took off their boots so they could run faster back to where they came from. At that point, you had a division, let's say, within Israel or within Jerusalem, within Israel, where some of the indigenous Arabs fought with the Israelis.
Right.
Bedouin fought with the Israelis. Some fought with the Jordanians and the Egyptians. So then the war's over in 1948, and it's like, well, where do these people go? And they basically get, the ones who fought against Israel get pushed out. And there is terrorist attacks, there is like atrocities and all that. But people don't want them. They don't, they fought on the wrong side of the war and they've lost. But Jordan and Egypt won't take them back. They refused to open the borders. So they're stuck on the borders. At that point, the UN kind of steps in and sets up tents and food supplies and all of that, which kind of brings you in many ways up to the present day, where you have these intermediate wars like the 6-Day War, the 7-Day War, and all these other kind of various kind of conflicts. Now I'm going to go way, way, way further back. I'm going to go 1,400 years back to the birth of Islam and Muhammad. So check this stuff out if you kind of don't believe it. There's a historical hatred between, let's say, the followers of the people who really follow the Quran and the people who follow the Torah. Right. It goes back 1,400 years. And the basis of that is that Muhammad was murdered by a Jew. He killed this Jewish guy. He took his daughter as a wife. She poisoned him. X number of months later, he died later on of the results of the poison. Right. And also, the Jews refused to accept Muhammad as a prophet. So he then massacred a load of Jews 1,400 years ago in various places. Now, within the Quran, it's clearly stated that the objective of the Quran is the caliphate, which is their idea of heaven, where the whole world becomes Muslim and the whole world comes under Sharia law. That can only be achieved once the last Jew has been killed. You have to kill every single Jew in the world. Then you can achieve the caliphate. So you're in there, and the rocks will cry out, here's a Jew, and the trees will cry out, here's a Jew. Come behind this tree, there's a Jew, come and kill him. It's in the Quran, in the Hadith, and the Surahs. So for that reason, their ideology and religion is that you've got to kill all the Jews. Up till I would say, because of the connections.
It's like a religion of death almost, it sounds like.
There are huge divisions between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. So I would say that Christianity and Judaism are kind of brother-sister religions, because Jesus Christ is documented as being a Jew, but primarily it's the Ten Commandments. Jews and Christians are bound by the covenant of Moses, which is supposed to be an agreement between. I'm not a religious guy. I'm just saying this is the kind of history. But Jews and Christians are kind of bound by this agreement of the covenant, where if you abide by the covenant, God looks after you. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, all that. That is not within the Quran, because according to the Muslims, because the Jews broke the covenant no longer applies. So a Muslim is allowed to do anything they want at all, so long as it furthers the cause of Islam. So lying, cheating, stealing, raping, murder, torture, all that is perfectly acceptable. And I would also say that human sacrifice is a part of Islam, where the idea of suicide bombers being martyrs, to me, that's human sacrifice. It's kind of like,
I can see where you make that distinction.
It's in there, but it's not kind of blatantly in there. But if you're like, if you kill your enemy and you say, for God, I'm killing, I've never heard a Christian say I'm cutting this guy's head off for Jesus, or a Jew saying I'm cutting off this guy's head for Jehovah. That's very specific to Islam. I'd say that harks back to Islam's earlier roots, pre-Muhammad, which would be one of the cults of the desert of around, 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. But look all this stuff up and do. I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm just kind of like, but anyway, we go back to 1948, and you get the birth of the PLO, and Nasser Arafat, which is really
just for people watching, what's the PLO?
Palestinian Liberation Organization.
Thank you.
Which was the idea was like Palestine is so I have to go back a bit, because why it was Russia withdrew its support from Israel, and then America stepped in and supported Israel, because Jews didn't like Stalin. Jews don't like Joseph Stalin, but there were a lot of Jews in America, and the Jews in America were leading a better quality of life. The Jews in America were in a position where they could send money, and they could funnel money and arms to Israel. So the loyalty shifted from the Soviet Union to America. At this point, the KGB set up the Palestinian Liberation Organization under Nasser Arafat, which was basically just, it was an invention of the KGB. And the idea was that there was a Palestinian nation which existed, which it didn't. There was never a fucking Palestinian nation. Palestine was part of the British Mandate, and inside Palestine, within that mandate, you had Armenian Christians, you had Jews, you had Druze, you had Bedouin, you had a lot of different factional groups, predominantly Muslim up until, let's say, the end of World War II, and then that demographic shifted to becoming predominantly Jewish. So they create the PLO, they fund the PLO, they train the PLO, just like they did the PLO, the ANC, the African National Congress, all these liberation movements, Fidel Castro, you know, these guys were being pumped out all over Europe. Keir Starmer attended the training camp, didn't he? KGB training camp in Bulgaria.
I think that needs to be verified. I have seen the pictures, but
yeah. Well,
anything can be faked, I think, can't it?
Well, maybe. There'll be stamps on his passport, but the Daily Mail ran that as a story. So I definitely, loads of them did. In the 80s, loads of these people went behind this Iron Curtain. Corbyn and anyway, I digress. So anyway, the KGB fund all these national liberation movements all over the world. The PLO just happens to be one of these national liberation movements. Within the national liberation movements, you get German terrorists. There are all kinds of terrorists from all over, Irish terrorists, German terrorists operating within the PLO. That's where you get the Munich massacre and the Entebbe, the raid on Entebbe, where it's international terrorist movements, really, of the socialist, communist, Bolsheviks, whatever being pumped out. Now, there's a difference, and the difference is they're really not religious movements. The PLO was never really a religious, it was more of a secular, like the IRA. It was really a secular movement, a secular left-wing communist movement. It was not a religious movement. And that ended in Gaza when they elected Hamas, because right. Hamas is very much a religion. Now, this is where the CIA and the Americans come in, because the Americans funded Al Qaeda and the Taliban and ISIS. They funded these religious Islamist movements as a conflict to the left-wing communist secular movements. So the idea was the religious terrorists would kill the communist terrorists. They'd cancel each other out. But Hamas is a kind of offshoot of ISIS, Al Qaeda, all these other groups. Now, Hamas is a deeply religious organization. Everything that happened on October 7th was in complete accordance with the Quran. And you have to realize these guys believe this stuff. They believe this stuff. It's concrete. And one of the best examples I got told was a suicide bomber who had a breeze block gaffer taped over his groin. And the idea was that when he blew himself up, his genitals would be intact so that he could still have sex with 72 virgins. That's like a fact. It's like an anecdotal thing we talk about here. But you have to, that's real. These guys believe that when they die, they're going to have sex with 72 virgins. They believe to establish the caliphate, they have to kill all the Jews. And according to their religion, Jews are pigs and monkeys. That's how Muhammad described the Jews, as a race of pigs and monkeys. Well, for them, the fact that Jews run Israel and have beaten the shit out of nearly every single army and military thing they've thrown at us since 1948 is a big ideological schism. Because monkeys shouldn't really be able to do that, should they?
Well, I've not seen an armed pig recently either. A pig carrying a machine gun or something. I haven't seen that.
So it's a direct conflict with the whole kind of Islamic kind of ideology and religion. So the hatred runs deep. The hatred runs very deep.
Why do you think, just moving on slightly from what you've said, just trying to sort of process that, a lot of people support Israel globally, not just people in the UK, not just people in America and things. There's a lot of support for Israel. Now, Israel is the only democracy in that area. There's got to be more than just the democratic reasoning for supporting Israel. Why do you think Israel gets the support it does?
There's a massive, honestly, I'm now going into realms I'm not comfortable talking about. I find it.
Just go with what you're comfortable with.
Okay, no, it's just weird. I find it weird because I met an awful lot of very, very religious Christians here.
Hmm.
very religious Christians. Many of whom had met Jesus firsthand in a physical way. One guy was drowning and Jesus pulled him up and saved him. And I got a bit nervous at one point. I thought, what if I open a fridge and Jesus is in there, and or he's under the bed, and then I'm going to have to become a Christian and believe in Jesus because I've met him. Because it's weird when you talk to people and it's concrete. Do you know what I mean? They believe that, and it's just still as kind of, and they'll come here, they'll do anything for Israel because according to their religion, Jews are the chosen people. The Messiah is going to turn up here, and they believe that, and they'll do absolutely anything and everything to protect the Jews in Israel and to protect the state of Israel. And for many Jews, the Jews don't really hold that belief so much, not so much as the Christians. I think the Christians hold it a lot more. I mean, as a Zionist Jew, I just think like Israel is a safe place for Jews to live. If worst comes to worst, a Jew can come to Israel and they'll be safe from kind of anywhere else. And but for a lot of them, and a lot of the religious Jews are quite anti-Israel because according to their religion, Jews should only live in Israel once the Messiah has arrived. So they're actively opposed to Israel, the guys with the hats and the beards, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the evangelical Christians are like, that's and there's a lot of these people. Do you know what I mean? And I think they're great. I mean, I think they're lovely, nice, kind, really nice people. But I do find it odd when they say that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because I ain't that religious. It's like, I
Okay.
respect it. Do you know what I mean? I do respect it, but
So you've just described yourself as a Zionist Jew.
yeah, totally, yeah.
Right. So Zionism, Zionist, it's a loaded term in this day and age. What
Yeah.
does it mean to you? Because there are a lot of negative connotations to that word.
The Zionist Jew believes that the Jewish people have the right to an independent homeland. That's it.
That's it. So it's not right-wing expansionism or anything else that gets thrown at that term.
No, not. I mean, it could be. It might not. Could be. Could not be. But the idea is just that's the simple definition of the Jewish. And the Jewish people have to have an independent home because we're always getting fucking murdered. Do you know what I mean? Killing Jews is I mean, for a start, when the Nakba happened in 1948 and that war happened, all of the Muslim nations just started killing all the Jews. So the Jews in like Iraq, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, all those places, there's only one place they could go to where they weren't going to get murdered. And they were all turning up here with like nothing. There's loads of them, like Eritrean Jews, black Jews, Ethiopian Jews, Yemeni Jews, all from the Middle Eastern countries. Because, I mean, how many Jews now live in Lebanon or live in...
I don't have the figures, if I'm honest.
It's pretty close to zero, mate. Nearly the same numbers of Christians. I think Egypt used to be a Christian country.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Afghanistan was Buddhist. Afghanistan was a Buddhist nation.
Really? That's interesting.
Egypt was Coptic Christian, so was Lebanon. These were Christian countries, but the ideology of Islam is kind of...
So why do you think people hate Jews so much? Why anti-Semitism?
Well, it's an interesting one because I think it's a very good... I think it's a...
Because it's prevalent throughout history, isn't it?
Well, not everywhere. This is the thing. You don't get it in India.
How many Jews are in India?
A lot. There's a lot.
Really? Okay.
You don't hear much about. You don't get it in India. You didn't really get it so much in America, but I think you are now. I think in America it's kind of like starting up properly again now. Historically, I would say it's for two reasons. With the Muslims, we killed Muhammad, so that's a factor. And I think with the Christians, we killed Jesus. So I think so that's a factor too.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't, really. Yeah.
So there's this historical kind of. I think the really interesting thing is that Jews have survived, where unlike the Gnostics, the Cathars, the Templars, all these other religious groups which died of death, whereas Jews have managed to survive for such a long kind of period of time. But yeah, I mean, there's a long history of hating Jews in Europe, but then also a long history of Jews in Europe. So you got to think like when the Romans invaded Britain, Jews came with them.
Mm.
And when the Norman conquest happened in 1066, Jews came with the Norman conquest because they bankrolled the Normans in the conquest of Britain. So there's this long history of anti-Semitism. There's also a long history. So I think it's just this thing of like Jews are different. We worship a different God. That's it really. I mean, you got to think like how long have the Catholics been killing the Protestants? Or how long have the Sunnis been killing the I think the interesting thing with Jews is there aren't many Jews. The Jews, population-wise, is a tiny percentage of the population. But I also think like now I think this is all going to change now, I really do, because you're now going to get a real division between anti-Semitism against Jews and hating Israel and the perception of Israelis as opposed to the perception of Jews. And maybe some Jews have really maybe Jews need to look at themselves in recent times and think, well, are we kind of in a degree responsible for some of this anti-Semitism? How many Jews are out there saying refugees are welcome here? How many Jews in Britain were saying, yeah, come to Britain? You're poor, you ain't got no, come to Britain, have a council house. You know what I mean? We'll look after you. We're a kind, caring kind of, because they identified with that kind of refugee perspective. So, and then how many at a later date are going, oh yeah, you know, Israel's bad. Yeah, we want to liberate Palestine and all that. So Israeli Jews think, well, fuck you, go live in Gaza. If that's your take on it.
Speaking of Gaza, you're out there, you're on the ground, you work for the IDF.
Well, not anymore, but yeah.
But you have previously. So what is that situation like since, I mean, October the 7th was horrendous. We've covered that. How have things evolved around the Palestine-Gaza situation?
I can only give you my opinion. Okay.
No, you're there though. So it's rather I ask you who's on the ground or I ask, I don't know, Dave down the street.
Protests in Israel against the war in Gaza have been massively misrepresented because they're not peace protests. They're not calling for peace. What they want is a swift conclusion to the war.
Right.
So, and I mean, they're very vague because I've spoken to some of them, but most people here agree, and myself included, we want a swift conclusion to the war because it can be concluded quickly. I think from Netanyahu's perspective, they don't want to lose a lot of Israeli soldiers. They don't want any more hostages getting taken. And they're worried about the national opinion. But I just think, like, just go in there and just get it all fucking done. That's my opinion.
Just get it done.
There's never going to be a two-state. Forget two-state solution. There's never going to be a two-state solution. It's not. That's over. The population of Gaza will be relocated, in my opinion, to either maybe somewhere in Africa. This is just my opinion. Though. I could be wrong.
No, it's your opinion. Just for anyone watching, it's his opinion.
Or if you're really unlucky, England, because they've already started issuing visas to Gazan students, Gazan kids, like they did with the Afghans. So how many people from Gaza are they going to, secretly fly into Britain? Because if they do, man, they're like, it's not going to be good for Britain. Put it that way. If they fill them up with all the refugees from Gaza. And I think the ones who kind of swear loyalty to Israel and switch sides will be allowed to stay. The ones that don't will either be killed or relocated, because that's war. So this is a war. This is what's going to happen. But I think longer term, I think they've got a plan. I think they mean it. I think they're completely serious. I think they're going to turn Gaza into Las Vegas. I think Donald Trump and all that. I think they're going to turn it into casinos. It's prime beachfront property. It's in the perfect place. You can redevelop, let's say use the term redevelopment. You can build casinos and holiday spas and health clubs and all kinds of lovely stuff.
Make it another rich person's playground.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Dubai. And then if you want to see the pyramids, you want to see Jerusalem, you want to see Acre, Gaza's in the perfect place to do it all, isn't it?
Prime real estate then, and Trump knows his real estate, I think.
Exactly.
Would you say the rise in anti-Semitism, just to touch back on this, I just thought of a question I didn't ask, in the West, as in Europe, America, the UK, and so on, it's not a rise of like British people, Americans. Would you say it's driven by the influx of migrants, immigrants, asylum seekers, whatever term you want to use?
You've got a terrible, terrible problem in you. And it's a well-known problem. So, I mean, now I know I'm talking facts because it's just like been verified. For the Muslim Brotherhood is an illegal organization in nearly every Middle Eastern country. If you're a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, and even in Egypt, you ain't going to last too long, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
they take it really seriously. The Muslim Brotherhood has been allowed to freely operate in Britain forever. I
did write a piece on them a while back, actually. Yeah.
Now you've got to think that's infinite amounts of money coming in from Qatar and from the Saudis. Infinite amounts of money. And what they've done is they've purchased people in key positions of authority, either through blackmail, through honey trapping, maybe like rent boys, rent girls, whatever, drugs, whatever, or just purchasing them directly. and just gradually taken over institutions, let's say prison service, intelligence services, health services, and just getting their people in key positions for ideology, certainly the universities, for what you call ideological capture.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a strategy. This is the thing within it's called first we kill the Saturday people, then we get the Sunday people.
The Jews and the Christians, yeah.
That's been a strategy within Islam for 1,400 years because they know it works. You split the Jews off, you basically divide and conquer, and you split the Jews off from the Christians, then you can, you can kind of get on with it. And but I think at the same time as this, even this interview, even this conversation we're having, I think a lot of people are really waking up to the reality of this because they're starting to recognise this is a threat to their children. Their children. And I'm far more worried about the situation in England than I am. In Israel, we're fine. We're happy. I mean, we're okay, I had my windows blown out by a ballistic missile. But
he says casually.
We had an air raid. I had an air raid this 9 o'clock this morning. I just fallen asleep on the fucking sofa. I was just like proper nodding off. At 9 o'clock, it's a fucking air raid.
It must be like being in a Schwarzenegger movie or something, just explosions and stuff all the time.
Sometimes, certainly when my windows were blown out, we were in the bomb shelter and I decorated the bomb shelter. I put a load of pictures because I went down the bomb shelter. Well, this is shit. It was all full of crap. People just dumping crap there. So I cleared it out. Me and my girlfriend, we cleared it out. We put out some carpets, hung some pictures up on the walls, made it like nice for when we're down.
Nice and homely bomb shelter.
I think it turned into an art gallery, to be honest. And but anyway, we were all down there. But the boom was big, man. We were there, and we knew it was like they blew up the market. One ballistic missile hit the marketplace, and another hit the Weizmann Institute. No one was injured because we were all in the bomb shelters. And,
is it like that daily, like just missiles and bullets and?
Not daily. I'd say about once a week. There's an air raid usually about once a week. The bullets. I live in Rokovot, which is predominantly Russian. 3 things happened here that really shook me up. It really shocked me when I was living here, when I first came to live here with my girlfriend. And one was she's got like an 8-year-old granddaughter. This was like 9:30 in the evening. And she went home on her own, about a kilometre walk. Would you do that in Britain?
I would. I wouldn't like my wife to do it.
No, would you let an 8-year-old girl walk home on her own?
Absolutely. Oh, no, not an 8-year-old girl. No way. No. I won't even let my kids go to the shop. And that's 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes away.
Here you do, because it's normal. It's normal.
It was normal when I was a kid. It's just things are a bit more unsafe now.
Another thing I saw,
unfortunately,
a woman. There's a dark alley where I live, like a real dark alley. And this woman was going down, good-looking, attractive woman, going down the alley. She had a mobile phone in one hand, a cup of coffee, and a cigarette on the other, on the go, going down this alley. And I was looking, and I thought, I thought, but no one's scared here. There's no crime. There's no crime. There might be ballistic missiles, but there's no muggings. There's a load of drunk Russians on the main street. They're there from about 10 o'clock through till midnight, just drunk.
Because that's not a stereotype.
No, but they're all like, they've got chairs and that. They're just drunk Russians. Just
drunk Russians.
They're all right. They ain't going to bother you. They're just like, it's just drunk Russians being drunk. You don't feel like threatened by them at all. Do you know what I mean? They're just like doing their thing. Beer,
drunk at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Beer here is good. I can get Marmite here and I can get Coleman's mustard. And I've got some bacon and get bacon here. And I'm like, all right. Do you know what I mean? It's good enough.
Are you allowed to eat bacon being Jewish?
Yeah, I'll do what I want.
Okay.
There's loads of pork, but I wanted bacon. I didn't want because their pork is different. It's Russian pork. It's kind of like, but there's a place in Tel Aviv. I mean, Tel Aviv is the gay capital of the world. For a start, it's just full of like gay men snogging on the beach and gay women snogging. Everyone's gay. I've got a big gay thing there. But there's a shop there called the Kingdom of Pork, which was quite funny. Like instead of the Kingdom of Heaven.
In Tel Aviv.
Yeah, in Tel Aviv, yeah.
The Kingdom of Pork, and you've just described it as like a gay mecca.
Big old sausage fest. And, but all kinds of pork, all kinds. There's big Filipino community, big Thai communities. This is the thing that gets me. It's like the way Israel's portrayed is just so, and the history. It's the way the history.
You've just described Israel. Sorry, just to interject, as like this melting pot of cultures and backgrounds and sexual orientations, and nobody cares.
No, well, you got to be, yeah, you got to be quite. Even my opinions, what I voiced just now about Muslims, could get me into trouble here,
Right.
because where I work, there's Muslims where I work, and they're all right. They're just like all right. I never see anyone wearing a burqa. The only
Okay.
times I've seen it is with the Bedouin women, because they some, but I don't even think they're wearing burqas. I think that's just how they dress in the desert. Do you know what I mean? To keep away flies and whatever. And I went through there with my daughter, and we stopped with a Bedouin to have dinner in Mitzpeh Ramon, and they were like just all right. And I think they're Muslims. I know they like live in the desert. There's loads of them. There's loads of them. And they're like, you know, they kind of like, they kill each other fairly kind of regularly, I think, as well. They have feuds and they like shoot each other and do car bombs, but they just do it in there where they live, so it don't really
Right.
bother anyone. And they go through the Egyptian border and smuggle guns and drugs. A lot of drugs get smuggled into Tel Aviv. And but that's kind of like their industry. But it's like, not being funny, if you don't want to, you don't have to, do you? Do you know what I mean? I mean, another thing here is, man, the Israeli police. And it's like, you know, you don't fuck with Israeli police. you just don't.
Right. Okay.
Even the women, you just don't, because it ain't going to go well for you. It's going to go. They're not like the English police. Do you know what I mean? They might. I mean, I don't even want to say any more about it in case some Israeli policeman or woman hears it.
It just
And
knocks on the door.
they don't like it, and they'll be like, "What'd you say? You said that?" You know. So, but
So
anyway, it's
just
good.
just to wrap up, just one final thought to quote Jerry Springer. A final thought. Why should people in the West come back to supporting Israel, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think Israel falls, you've had it. I think Israel falls, you've had it. Because if Israel falls, that's going to be a green light. Every single Islamist group. It's not going to happen anyway. I mean, I'm just not worried about it because it's just not going to happen. But I think you should be supporting Israel, because basically, when you're supporting Israel, you're supporting yourself. Because we are, whether we like or not, part of the Judeo-Christian tradition, whether you're kind of religious or not. And you are looking at what is happening now is a religious war. This is a religious conflict between Islam and, I would say, the West. The only chance you've got of the West of winning this is via Christianity. It's via your own kind of religious ideology. It sounds weird from me not being a Christian, because your Western liberal democracies can't win. They don't want to win. They want to integrate. And Islam is not an ideology that you can integrate. And that's been proven in Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, you know, Afghanistan, Nigeria's going off now, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You have to understand what Islam is. Islam is not like Christianity. It's not like Judaism. It's a different ideology. It has a different set of principles. And they want war, and they want to have a war in Israel. They want to kill every single Jew in Israel. Then they want to kill every single Jew in Europe. And then you will be under the caliphate as a dhimmi. And that sounds far-fetched, but that's it. That's written down. It's documented. They know.
The end goal.
Believe them when they tell you this. Believe them. They're being honest. They're literally laying out what their intentions are to the West. And for some reason, people think they're joking or lying. No, they're quite serious. They're absolutely serious about it. I think they're close to achieving it. I think in Belgium, I think they're very close to achieving it. I think Belgium's very close to becoming a caliphate. Really? I don't think it will happen in England. I think in England, they've really bitten off a lot more than they chew. I think when the English people really start up, which I think they're starting to, you can't think. I mean, my granddad was World War I, my dad was World War II. You know.
And here we are on the cusp of World War III, and here you are.
Yeah, but what would I do though? This is a good question, because I've got friends in the military in Britain, and I was thinking like, well, what side do I jump? Because I'd want to do my bit for what I believe to be right either way with it. And I just think like with the English, when they go, the English are they're not like every other race of people, are they? They never have been.
No.
They proved it with Brexit. It's an island race of Anglo-Saxons, and they're genetically different. They think differently. They've got Magna Carta. They've got like this.
Well, we had Magna Carta, but it's funny you say the Anglo-Saxon thing, because I think of Rudyard Kipling's poem about don't upset the Anglo-Saxon.
I don't. Do you know what I mean? Don't. I mean, seriously, there's serious. the British Empire wasn't just built with steam engines and guns; it was built with an ideology.
Mm.
And the
I
thing
think
is,
maybe we've lost our way on things like that a little bit.
well, I think collectively, yeah, the idea of fair play, play on, play up, and play the game.
Mm.
And also that utter ruthlessness. The English are good at violence, man. The English have got a long history of being exceptionally good at violence. The English intelligence services, MI5 and MI6, outsmarted the Israelis on occasions in the past, which you don't kind of hear a lot about. But certainly the British intelligence services are very. This is what I'm saying. What side will the British state jump? And I don't think they're going to have a choice, man. I think you study English history, man. I think that it's not going to end well for the Muslims, in my opinion. I just don't see the Muslims coming out on top in England at all.
Okay, and that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.